It's about 5 after. I want to go ahead and get started. So let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Williams. I'm one of the leaders here for the Portland Tableau User Group. I want to welcome you today to this March edition of the User Group. We have some nice things in store for you. So let's go over what the agenda is going to be today. So I'm going to give you a short intro. We're going to introduce our leadership team. We're going to do a community spotlight on one of our newest leadership members, Emily. She's going to really give us an insight on who she is and how she got into the data scene and the Tableau scene. Then we're going to go over the 2022 features, the new Tableau features. And we have Alfonso and Madeline who are going to share their thoughts and their knowledge with us. And then we're going to open the floor for any Q&A that you may have. If there's something that's you're having trouble with, or just a general question, please feel free to, we'll leave the floor open. We'll be able to ask the questions and hopefully answer them so that you can get past that. Or just have a general statement, feel free to talk. This is an interactive session. We want to make sure that everybody gets as much as they can from this meeting today, in any meeting. So again, the TUG is once a month, doing Thursdays at 1 p.m. It's on the right. You can see this is our leadership team for the TUG. We have Ryan Callahan, the aforementioned Emily Miley, who's going to be in our community spotlight today. Cynthia Maywald, that's also very awesome. And as is Danny Steinmetz, who is fortunately unable to attend today. And then myself down there with my hands folded, looking a little silly, is myself. So the 5 of us comprise the PDX TUG leadership team. However, if there are individuals who would love to be able to be a part of this, please feel free to ping us. We would love to understand, how you want to, be a part of the leadership team, and, the more the merrier, So upcoming TUGs, the next TUG after this one will be on April 6th. And then May 4th, may the 4th be with you. Had to do that, So, but also that's going to be pretty important because the May edition of the PDX TUG will be right before the Tableau conference in Las Vegas, which I would all encourage you to at least either go physically or participate virtually. But it's a tremendous experience, and I think anybody who's done Tableau for any extended period of time would find a great deal of knowledge and a great deal of rewarding experiences by attending one of these conferences. So there you go. So general items, we have our user group page. Please take a look at this URL. If you, obviously the people here know what this user group page, but if you want to know anything that's coming up in the user group, I would dare you to check that out. That's going to be wonderful. We got the Portland community page. We also have a LinkedIn page. And so I'm going to go ahead and share that with you guys on our community page. And for forthcoming, we'll probably put that link up there. We do have a LinkedIn page dedicated to the Portland Tableau user group. Please feel free to join that. We'll also post, I will personally post news and notes on that page as well. So another place for you to take a look at and get some notes. If you have any ideas for content, please feel free to drop a line at the Gmail address, pdxtableauusergroup@gmail.com. We would love to understand what you would like to have as far as your content. Please, the whole point of dashboards is creativity in addition to functionality and making sure that whatever you're delivering solves a use case. But creativity is so important when you're dealing with dashboards and visualizations. So we'd love to understand what your content actually is. And if for some reason you were unable to miss a previous TUG, or you have colleagues that are going to miss this TUG, we will be posting our past event recordings on this at this YouTube link, which is dedicated for the PDX user group. As this changes, we're going to be moving to a different type of recording, like Bevy recording. So we'll figure out a way to get those recordings up on this site as well. It may take a little bit of time, so bear with us as we adjust to that. But if there are any other recordings that you'd like to take a look at, this is where you would find them right now on that YouTube page. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce one of my friends and contemporaries here. Emily just joined us recently on as far as the youth leadership team. She's been a breath of fresh air. and I want her to just talk to you guys about who she is. So without further ado, I'm gonna mute myself and let Emily take the floor.
Thank you, Chris. That was so sweet. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Miley. I am an analytics consultant at Interworks. I've been there for a little over a year now. In terms of sort of my background with Tableau, I didn't really start out in Tableau in terms of data viz. I actually started out in GIS. So a lot of my background was doing GIS analytics work and working a lot in Esri and working with like cities in terms of mapping data. And then I actually worked for a data visualization firm. So that's kind of when I started to get into Tableau. I started thinking about how we look at data. And I really just loved this idea of like, of creating something that, you know, could tell a story and tell it really quickly and in ways that words, I think oftentimes, you know, fail us or fail me at least. And so that's sort of where I got into Tableau. I spent a little bit of time at the city of Portland. You'll see I'm not in Portland also. If it's not pretty obvious, I'm actually down in California for the week, but I do still live in Portland. So I worked at the city of Portland for a little bit with the 311 program, working at helping them stand up their data and analytics program. And then I landed at Interworks. So it's a little bit about my Tableau experience. In my free time, I sort of moonlight as a as a rock climbing coach. I used to coach competitive youth athletes that competed in the USAC circuit. And then went to go do international competitions as well. And so I do a good amount of rock climbing in my spare time. And then our other community leader, Danny, put this favorite food cart question as a prompt for me because I love a food cart in Portland called Stretch the Noodle. I think it's got a bit of a cult following at Interworks for sure. It's this woman who's in this, thank you, Cynthia. It's this woman that sits in her food truck and she and her husband, I think, like they stretch handmade Chinese noodles every day. And they're so good. They're very spicy. So if you're not particularly a big fan of spice, I would go mild to start. But I love their food. Really, really wonderful. It's down by the waterfront on the west side. So kind of by Killer Burger, I think. So but yeah, I love food carts. I love food. And so that was a targeted question for sure. And then, yeah, some of you might have met me. I'm going to primarily be in charge of trying to get the in-person events for the tug up and going here. So over the next year, you'll probably see me scrambling to put together some events for those of you who came to the one in February. That was really great to see you. And yeah, I'll be around. So thanks so much and excited to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and thank you so much for sharing with us about a little bit about who you are. We look forward to getting to know you even better as the days and the months go on, as we continue the tug. And from what I just in a short period of time that I've known you, it's been really wonderful seeing who you are. So I think the whole crew here is excited to have you part of the team. And, we kind of have our own, sort of, niche here with the PDX tug users. And it's great to have more people part of it. So thank you. And hopefully we'll see more of you and hear more about all the rock climbing experiences. And I need to go see that food cart when I get back to PDX, because you've got me all energized, because I don't have that down here right now. I'm kind of missing stuff. So
I'm trying to buy out her food cart, Chris. Like, let's do it. I'm all for it.
that is perfect. So awesome. Okay, cool deal. So let's carry on. And the next two individuals who we're going to be talking about, and we have Alfonso and Madeline, who are going to talk to us about the Tableau features that are, the new Tableau features from 2022. And I want you to give them a round of applause and a warm welcome as I pass the baton to both of them. So I'm going to stop sharing. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to grab grab yourself some slides.
Perfect.
No problem. And thank you both for coming. And thank you both for taking the time out. It really means a lot to us as the leadership team and as well as the entirety of the PDX Tableau user group to have you here. So thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having us. While Alfonso is pulling up the slides, I will just kind of kick us off here. So we are excited to be doing kind of the 2022 Tableau release year in review for you today. These are going to be a handful of our favorite features that came out along with the quarterly updates that Tableau released in 2022. So before we get started, I'll introduce myself. I'm Madeline. I live in Phoenix, and I'm an analytics consultant at Interwork. So I'm lucky enough to be on a team with Emily, who we just met, and or who many of you know already, and can vouch for how great she is. But it's fun to be here because I hear so much about this group from my teammates who are involved, and really glad for the opportunity. So I'll let Alfonso introduce himself here, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alfonso Bacalubisher. I was a little surprised about the bio that was put in the. I didn't write that, but those things I guess are true. I am licensed to parent. That's the first thing. I'm a foster parent as of this year. I love Tableau. I like doing things with Tableau that shouldn't be allowed. So I'm usually frustrated. My manager was like, "No, how do you do that?" And yeah, I'm really excited. We're just talking a couple minutes ago that I am the most landlocked individual. I am in Omaha, Nebraska, so I am a couple days away from the beach. So yeah, very excited to be here. I'm very excited to share some of these new features that we have in Tableau. But to kick us off, it's going to be Madeline.
Great, thanks. So we can kick it off to the next slide there, Alfonso. This is our high-level list of the updates that we'll be covering today. Here we've broken them out by category, but as we actually get into the details on some of these features, we'll be moving sequentially. So you may know that Tableau releases a major update roughly every quarter, and we'll be tackling a few of our favorite updates from 2022.1 through 2022.4. So those updates are going to include improvements to web authoring and web edit, as well as some updates to Ask Data on Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud. And then in a little bit, Alfonso will talk through some of the exciting additions for data prep and dashboard developers if you are working in Tableau Desktop, including things like dynamic zones and image roles. So with that, let's get started with 2022.1. Here we'll be diving in a little bit to Workbook Optimizer, Data Phrase Builder in Ask Data, and some web authoring updates. So Tableau's Workbook Optimizer, you'll see this at play in the GIF on the right there. But if any of you have used or referenced the Designing Efficient Workbooks white paper, that is the foundation for this feature. So in 2022.1, Tableau introduced what they call Workbook Optimizer, which essentially at the click of a button evaluates your workbook, whether in Tableau Desktop or something that you've already published to Tableau Server or Tableau Cloud. And it evaluates your workbook against the principles defined in that Designing Efficient Dashboards white paper. So what's really cool about this is it will identify problem areas in your dashboard that could have an impact to performance. And it really clearly buckets them into the containers that you'll see in the GIF right now, take action, needs review, or past. And the recommendations in each of these tabs you'll recognize if you've read through that white paper before. Things like hiding unused fields or creating an extract where you're maybe connecting to live data that could help the performance of your workbook. So it clearly defines some recommendations, and then you'll have the option to rerun the optimizer after you've acted on some of those recommendations. And eventually, things that are complying with the white paper will land in that past bucket. And that's where you can expand that category and see all the areas where you've designed your workbook according to best practices. So I think a very practical feature. I appreciate how clearly it lays out the recommendations. As I was thinking about this, it feels similar-ish to Performance Recorder, but in my opinion, this is something that's really easy to launch with the click of a button while you're in that development stage. to immediately get some very black and white objective insight on what is the performance going to look like, or what should I do now to save performance later. So that is the workbook optimizer at a very high level. We'll move next into the Ask Data Phrase Builder, and I think we have a GIF for this item as well. If you are using Ask Data, the Phrase Builder offers now what is a more guided experience around querying your data. So previously, you'd go into Ask Data, you'd see a relatively blank page, and then users were kind of left to their own devices regarding asking relevant or writing relevant queries to actually glean the insights from the data. With the Phrase Builder, you'll see that it's a much more guided experience. Tableau has introduced these buttons for new fields or new filter, and it sort of prompts you for the natural next step in writing your query to take some of that ambiguity away from using Ask Data. So that is Ask Data Phrase Builder. And we'll move next into the web authoring improvements around 2022.1. And this is where I feel like in 2022, Tableau really started to, I think, plug some of those gaps in customizing the formatting around reference lines and tables in web edit. So this feature is going to be specific to web editing or web authoring. And you can now format trend lines or reference lines right in web edit, both on Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud. It's as easy as right-clicking. Let me find my notes here. I got to remember. There's a couple ways to go about it. So you can access the formatting by the right-click menu or by left-clicking on the reference line while that formatting pane is open. And that's going to open up to options around style, size, and color, basically saving you that step of having to download the workbook to your local machine, only to make a really minor change potentially to the formatting around a reference line or a table. A lot of these things are now solved for right in web edit. So that is our 2022.2 highlights. There are many, many more, but these were a few of our favorites. I can pause here as Alfonso queues up 2022.2 in case there are any questions. We can also answer anything in the Q&A section later, whatever works.
We do have one question.
Sure.
Keith had asked, where can I find the white paper for?
Oh, sure. Yep, I'll send the link for that.
Okay.
Is giving his updates. That's a great question. And a lot of us at Interworks have this either printed or, pinned to our desktop because it's just a great resource. So I will be happy to link that after this.
Perfect.
I was also gonna say too, and I apologize, this is a bit of a shameless plug. But if you're like me and you're looking for kind of like guides or like, because the white paper is a lot of pages. Interworks also did do a blog post that we can also link. That's like, it's actually written by the people that wrote the white paper. Because the folks that wrote this white paper work at Interworks. And so we did like a summary guide for kind of like how to think about the white paper as well. And I can link that too. So.
That's a great call, Emily. Yeah, it's definitely not, easy before bed reading. It's kind of, I find my use of it to be, somewhat targeted. If I know that I'm using data blending and I want to understand the consequences of using that, then I would go to the white paper for that specifically, but that's a great call. Thank you for thinking of that. Okay, here we are in 2022.2. We'll talk about auto-saving in web edit, column reordering in Tableau Prep, and a few more updates to web formatting through web edit. So auto-saving in browser. So this is available on Tableau Server and Tableau Cloud. What's nice about this is in the past, if you were web editing a workbook online, you would get to this point where you had to make a decision about whether you were ready to publish your workbook, maybe to a sandbox or somewhere where it wasn't as visible to other users, but your changes were still relatively visible before you were necessarily done with them. So any sort of web edit had to be published. What Tableau does now is it saves a draft of your web edits into a private space. So as you'll see in this GIF, if you were to navigate to a workbook that you had previously been working in through Web Edit, you'll see this little banner that says there's a draft available. It's right there in the GIF now, and then you'll have that option to continue editing. So in this way, you don't have to prematurely publish your changes, and you can come back to your web edits, iterate on them, and publish it only when you're ready for a larger audience to see the changes that you've made. So I think this is a really slick feature. The first time I saw it, I wasn't yet aware that it was a feature, and I was like, what is autosave? Like, wait, where did that go? But it's really keeping those changes private until you go ahead and actually publish them. And so that's a nice feature that came out in 2022.2. And next up, we have an update to Tableau Prep. So for our prep users, this has to do with reordering your fields. So rather than manually dragging and dropping each column in the profile pane, you can now drag and drop to sort columns right in the field list view. And once you've arranged your column order here, that's going to be maintained across the entire workflow and the final output once you run your flow. So, this functionally does the same thing as the former way of doing it, but it's just more accessible, it's more intuitive, and generally easier to work with. So a nice update to just the navigation here in Tableau Prep. And then we have a couple more web formatting updates. So again, filling those gaps that we used to have when it came to customizing the formatting on your charts and trend lines. 2022.2 lets you format table elements, so headers, panes, cells, borders, and again, style, width, color, pretty much all of those customizations for those elements that you are able to do on Tableau Desktop are now more easily available to you right in Web Edit. So at this, you can also select like the divider level. It really feels like we're just opening up the options in terms of what we can customize straight in Web Edit. And I believe Alfonso is going to touch on even a couple more of these. So I think Tableau made some really great moves in 2022 as it relates to customizing charts in Web Edit. And again, just saving that step of having to download the workbook, republish it, kind of keeps everything in that web layer. So those are my updates on 2021 and 2022.1 and 2022.2. If there are questions, we can pause here, and then I'll let Alfonso kick it off with the third quarter updates.
I don't see anything in Q&A right now, so I would say if we could probably push on to the third part here.
Sure. Okay. Sounds good. And I see Emily linked that white paper and the inner work summary of that. So thank you. We're all set there, and I'll let Alfonso kick it off now with our next updates.
How's it going, everybody? As you could have seen in the bio that was written for me, it is very true in that I'm very excited about a couple of the new features of 2022. And one of them that we'll touch here that was released in 2022.3 is dynamic zones. We'll also talk about table extensions, which is again using more advanced analytic programs such as Python or R to directly bring in your data into Tableau, as well as some other web improvements. And I'll tell you why I'm pretty excited about all three. We'll follow the same format as Madeline. Unfortunately, I didn't put the arrows, so bear with me. She's better representing than I am. But the first one is table extensions. As you can see from this GIF, you can import a data source, right? So a CSV or some type, and then from it, input some type of code, right? The Python R to transform the data. This could be APIs, this could be, again, data transformation is, as it is going on here, and directly upload the input of your code into Tableau. I will say, whenever I look at this GIF, I was like, I'm not entirely sure what this is, what's going on here. So once you figure out, it's like, okay, it's a pretty cool flex, a little bit useless, but a pretty cool flex in that what they did here, and this shows you the power of it, right? So their original data included just images that they have saved, right? of the ones that you see here. But what they do is then they take the Python code and then they transform into a data source of pixels, right? So after they transform this data thing into those images into pixels as a data source, then they can recreate the image as a table or as a chart. So this is just to showcase really how powerful this is. I have not dived into it as much as I want to, but there's a couple of projects that I'm working on that this is extremely helpful. So the only thing to keep in mind is you have to be able to connect to Tableau, to Python or R, either in the server or locally. So this is something that if you need help kind of setting up, we can help you walk through that. The next one is going to be dynamic zone visibility. And this is something that is really exciting as well, because in the past, the option that you had was sheet swapping, right? So essentially what this was is clear. As soon as the sheet becomes clear, you can collapse it and show something else in the same container. What this is instead using a parameter or using a filter to completely disappear the whatever's contained in a single container. And what this is really exciting is you don't have to mess around with like the padding or the titles, because sometimes swapping only works if only specific conditions are met. I have used this already a couple times, and it has been extremely useful. I'm really glad it got released. And I know it doesn't look like much, but all the data is still behind there. It's just that as soon as it disappears, it's no longer rendered, and you can completely forget about it until you select a new parameter, you trigger a new filter, and that has been really helpful for me. The last one that we want to highlight for 2022.3. Let me just real quick talk about how to do this, how to get this done, right? So after you select a container, you will see an option under layout, right, that says control visibility using. Once you have that, you can click on it, right? And under there, you can either select a parameter or you can select a filter, right, that you want it to be used to trigger, right, the effect. So once again, in your dashboard, go to layout and just click on control visibility using value. You can take a parameter value or a Boolean filter. And then last for this release is improved web authoring, right? So another thing that it was kind of difficult, right, is that you couldn't change the data types on web edits, but now you can do it. It's a little grainy here, but again, once you're in web, you can right click and convert to this discrete or continuous as needed, as well as formatting the borders of the totals and subtotals. As Madeline was talking, Interworks has invested a lot, it seems like, time and effort in improving their web interface. And it's I've been reluctant about using Tableau Cloud, the web interface. I'm such a sucker for the desktop, but it seems like all these improvements they've made, they're made Tableau web and online on par, right? More and more with Tableau desktop, which is extremely exciting. So that is done for 22.3. I'll pause here if anybody has any questions. And then I can go to 2022.4.
I think you are good to go.
Sounds good. The last release of 2022 was 2022.4. Some of the things that we're going to touch on is image role, which again, it is pretty exciting, and I'll talk a little bit of what it has replaced for me. This other one that I'm really excited about, which is proper, which it was silly that it didn't exist before now, but I'm really excited that it does now. We also have a couple other things such as worksheet data replace, so you can replace a data source at a specific worksheet, hyperlinks, and more. So this one had quite a bit of things that we're excited about. for the very first thing is image roles, right? So assuming that you want to show, right, so some type of image in your dashboard. Before, you had a couple options, right? Either you can upload them as shapes, you can use Unicodes, but the options were pretty limited to what was available, right? To in terms of Unicodes or types of shapes, right? You had to create the shapes, you had to upload the shapes in your repository. But now what you can do is you can bring in a URL, right, in your data source, and then you can change the image role, right, to be an image, right? So here in this GIF to the right, you can see that this person brought the image. It's a link, but once they change the image role to a URL, you can then see that it takes the value of, right, that image. And I was talking to my boss earlier, is like this, I think this makes Unicodes a little bit obsolete in Tableau, because here you can upload any type of shape, any type of image, as long as you include it in your data. So we're very excited about that one. The second one is the replace data source at the worksheet level. So not sure if you've done this before, to where you can replace a data source in your workbook, right? So essentially, we have a new updated data source, or you have a template that you just want to apply to a different data. It used to be the case that it applies to all, right, the worksheets using that data source. But now you can do it at a single worksheet level. And the way to do that, right, is similar steps as before. You right click, you say replace data source, and then you check the box saying replace current worksheet only. And this is a very good use case, because you may not want to replace everything in your workbook, maybe just one sheet, maybe you duplicate it and just want to duplicate your template using different data sources. So this is also very useful. And then the last one here is converting strings into proper function. Not sure if you have had this experience before, where your fields come in all lowercase, all caps, and in order to turn them into proper, you have to do this wizardy calculation that was pretty heavy on pretty much rendering, right? So because it was just like finding the first letter, turning into an upper, finding the rest, turning it lower. But what if there's a space? What if there's multiple things you need to convert to proper? So now forget about all that. Now proper, the function can take care of that. And to prove, to see if this actually works pretty good, I tested with my name. As you can tell, my name is hyphenated, and it indeed worked with hyphenated names, which is amazing. One of the things that usually my hacky code ended up working is just capitalizing the first letter of a word, and usually a hyphen ends up being part of the word, so it doesn't capitalize the letter after the hyphen. But this seems to be an improvement of that. I have yet to test. I do not believe that, it does another certain names, such as like McPhillips or some of those type of names where there's two capital letters, one within the word itself. I'm not sure if that works. I haven't tested it out, but this for sure is an improvement from what we've had before. The next thing is in Tableau server. You can edit a text, right, and make it into a hyperlink, which is again useful for you for user experience, right? For example, in this GIF, you can see on the right-hand side, right, you can edit the title, add a link that will take the user to different a page. There's other things in this release, such as HIPAA compliance and cloud. I've worked with hospital data before. It is very sensitive, and you have to do a lot of workarounds and to make it as safe and protected as possible. But now it is HIPAA compliant, right? With this new release, there's so many new security measures put in place so that the most private data remains that way. And lastly, web authoring enhancements, right? Access. So here, similar to what we've shown before, they've put a lot of effort into web user experience. You can now access number formatting, which again is something that you have to download or open in desktop. And you can then change the shading for headers, panes, and cells. So little by little, they start rolling out functionalities that you have in desktop in web, but it makes web experience much, much better. And then on Tableau Prep Builder, so it's a much better improved UI. I know sometimes your prep can become a little messy especially when you have so many steps. So in the line processing is kind of hard to organize in a way that looks neat. And so now it has improved the vis of this, so it's much cleaner, easier to work with. And then the other one that is kind of similar with Tableau, where if you want to replace a field that's already in the view, just drag it and drop it on top of it. It does something similar here in Prep to where you can drag a input step and drop it on top of another and automatically replace it. So it doesn't break things on after you, again, set the conditions right. But and so again, the connection still remains after you drop it on top. So again, these are a few of our very of the releases and updates that we're very excited about for the year of 2022. If anybody have any questions of the last 2022.4, I'd be happy to answer them, or any of the 4 releases that we talked about. Or in general, any questions regarding Tableau, we are happy to answer this.
Well, what I want to do is, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. That doesn't mean you can't ask any more later, but I'm just saying I don't see any right now. So Alfonso, Madeline, I want to thank you both for the insightful presentation. I'm excited to play around with the new features. I'm now on 2022.1. I need to upgrade soon. And so, but having these features in the back pocket, knowing what they're doing, especially on the server side, which I tend to play around with a bit more, they're very intriguing. And it keeps me inspired to know that Tableau is actually looking out for us as the end user to try to make our experience better as far as, not just development, but also the user side as well. So were there elements that you found much more rewarding in your personal work of the features that were added? Either one of you can answer that.
I'll say first with dynamic zones, that has been by far one of the best experiences that I've had, because again, sheet swapping is very finicky, right? And you have to set up so many types of filters to make it work and look properly. Whereas this one, again, it makes rendering much faster, calculation much faster, because it completely disappears, right? And it makes your dashboard a lot more dynamic. There's a couple examples that I can share of, like, again, it's kind of like a drill down, right? You click on something and a new sheet pops up, right? And it gives you like all of the details, right? As opposed to having an empty table at the bottom, right? It makes the dashboards much cleaner, much easier to use. And that's what I'm very excited about. I'm very also excited about the table extensions for like Python and R. There's a couple projects that I want to dive into that require some more complex analytics, and I have not tested it out as much as I want to yet, but my evenings are going to be full of playing with this new toy.
Cool. Yeah, I do a lot of R, just in tinkering with it, and I'm play around with it quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see how I can play with that and twine R with what Tableau is offering right now. And how about you, Madeline? What has helped you make your Tableau experience better from these new features?
Yeah, I think one of the features I was most excited about was the image roles. Because I love the idea of having a visual element beyond just a chart, to be able to discern one row from the next with an image. But previously it was shapes, and then you had to update your repository and then refresh the shapes. And I always found myself then having to remap shapes I had already mapped previously. And at that, once you updated the repository, those shapes didn't just flow through. You still had to assign the values in your dimension to those shapes. And so being able to just maintain a URL in my data source for whatever image needs to be called for that row, it's been great. And it's dynamic in the sense that if that URL is updated, it's going to flow right through. I'm not going to have to go through and remap that value to a new image. So it's simple, but it made a big deal for me. So
Excellent. Do anybody else, Cynthia or Emily, do you have any thoughts or questions that you want to throw out there?
I mean, just going through that presentation, thank you guys once again for doing that and for your time. Like, I'm very excited to just be able to do so much. They did a lot of web authoring updates, and so that will save a lot of time on like simple things that I need to go through and fix. So just like the ease of my day just seems a lot easier. So thank you for sharing this. I'm excited. And now have to push my server admin to get us upgraded faster. So
yeah, I'm with you, Cynthia. My default used to be, like, oh, if it has to do with formatting and web edit, I'm probably not even going to bother. You
Yeah.
just kind of learn to assume that it wasn't available, and I would kind of deter friends and clients from trying it because it was just like not a thing for a long time. And I feel like now we're much less limited in that area. So it's exciting.
Sweet.
And I will say, I want to reiterate that those were our highlights. I know we could spend hours talking about the new features. That's the ones that have been the most useful for us, or we've been very excited for them to release. If you want the full list, I encourage you to go to look at all the releases. I can drop a link here. We touched just the surface, right? They do a great job at just touching a variety of topics in each of the releases. But
thank you for sharing that. And Emily, thank you for sharing that white paper link so quickly and the summary. I'm excited to watch the video. I've not started. I was trying to get through, but yeah, this is awesome.
No, this is great. I want to thank you both for your time and attention to detail with the presentation. It's wonderful. If someone would like the slides, that question hasn't come up yet, but I'm sure it will. So would that be available potentially?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Emily, I'll let you speak to the.
Yeah, we can share that out.
Okay.
We'll take a look and we'll make sure that.
Yeah, go ahead, do your thing.
Alfonso's social security number on there or anything.
Right.
We'll definitely share that.
I know
I didn't even know every notes.
I know someone's going to ask that. It hasn't happened yet, but someone did that. So I figure I'd just be proactive of that. Cool. Well, thank you again, both of you, so much. And at this time, I'd like to take the remainder of the time for anybody out there to just say, hey, I have a question, or hey, I have a thought or comment. So I want to open the floor to everybody. So please don't be shy and feel free to chat with us. So does anybody have anything going on, want to share what they're doing, have a question for the masses? Now's the time.
Wish there was a way to unmute everybody on these things and like let it be a discussion, but I don't think Zoom does that.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable talking in the masses, you can obviously paste it in QA, which has been an option throughout the entire entirety of the affair. But if everybody is okay and no one has any additional questions, then what I'll do is I'll give you 10 minutes back. And I'll end this by saying, thank you so very much for your time. Thank you all for coming to the PDX Tug March edition. We will look forward to seeing you on April 6th for the April edition. And happy tableauing. And thank you again for spending some time with us in your busy days.
Right on. Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
Take care.
Take
Thank
care.
you.